My online boyfriend suddenly sent me a picture of his lunch. A steaming steak, fresh off the grill. "Praise me, baby," he wrote. "I'm being a good boy and eating my lunch." I was just about to send him a good boy when my eyes moved downward, and that's when I saw it. Bright red letters printed along the edge of his plate. Stonebridge Labs. What a coincidence. That's where I work too. My heart skipped, and I froze right there. My mind went completely blank. Because the person I had been dating online for over a year might be sitting right next to me at lunch. I was in the company cafeteria, quietly cutting into my steak, remembering how he always said he never had time to eat, so I had texted him earlier. "Eat no matter how busy you are. Be a good boy, okay?" Less than 10 minutes later, my phone lit up. "Yes, baby, I'm eating like a good boy. Praise me." There was even a picture attached. A fresh, hot steak. I was just about to praise him. But the more I looked at the picture, the stranger it felt. I stared at it for a while. And then I realized why it looked so familiar. Those red letters. Stonebridge Labs, printed right on the plate. Wasn't that where I worked? I looked down at my own plate, then back at my phone, and suddenly, my steak lost all its flavor. The cafeteria was strictly for employees only. No one else could get in, which meant my online boyfriend might be working in this building. Even as I sat there frozen, his messages kept coming one after another. "Why aren't you replying, baby? I really am eating, you know." Was it something I said? I still hadn't recovered from the shock. I knew he lived in the same city, but I never knew he worked in the same building. "Baby, where do you work?" "Baby, are you at Stonebridge right now?" I kept typing those messages and deleting them over and over again. I had no idea how to even ask, because if I asked him, he would definitely ask me back. And if he found out I worked here, wouldn't that be the end of me? What if he followed the clues and figured out who I was? Just thinking about all the cute emojis he sent me and how I flirted with him like that made me feel embarrassed. Before I could figure anything out, more messages came in. "Why are you ignoring me, baby? Are you having lunch with another guy? What's wrong? You're scaring me." I had to fix this. So I forced myself to calm down and replied, "I was eating, so I didn't see your message." "Good boy." He immediately sounded satisfied. "See? I finished everything. Going back to work now." I let out a long breath and looked around the cafeteria. Most of the employees had already left. Only a few women remained, and an older man with white hair. None of them seemed like him. None of them matched at all. I forced myself to calm down again. I needed to think. First, who was he? Second, could I trust him? Third, if we knew each other in real life, should we keep dating? Or end it here? Because seeing him every day would be too awkward. Looking back at the past year, I realized how carefully we had protected our privacy. We never sent face pictures. We never exchanged names or addresses. The only thing I had was the time I insisted, and he sent me a picture of his abs. But how was I supposed to identify him with that? I couldn't just go around lifting everyone's shirts. When I got back to my cubicle, I couldn't help but shiver as I looked at my coworkers joking and messing around like usual. If my baby was really one of them, I might actually pass out. So I started going through our chat history like crazy, hoping to find even the smallest clue. And I did. Last month, he went to the mall and sent me a bunch of pictures. Out shopping with friends. "Thinking of buying a mug," he wrote. "Pick one for me, and I'll buy one for you too." In the end, I chose a titanium one, but I refused the gift because I didn't want to reveal my address. Still, he bought it. My baby picked it. Of course it'll be great, which meant all I had to do now was find out who was using it. I walked around the office several times, but I still didn't see that mug anywhere, not even once. Trying to stay calm, I decided to test him. "Do you still use that mug?" I sent. His reply came instantly. "Yes, it's really good." A second later, he sent a picture. The mug was sitting on a desk. I tapped the image and stared at it carefully, but for some reason, I couldn't match it to anyone's desk. I just couldn't figure it out. Right when I was still confused, a message popped up on my work system from my always serious boss, Daniel Brooks. "There's a problem with the proposal. Come to my office." I took a deep breath and walked over. When I entered, he was on the phone. His voice was low, soft, completely different from how he usually sounded. "Yeah, baby. I miss you too. Come by my office tomorrow. Ethan will be here too. You can come with him. I just don't want you getting tired from driving." "Yeah, okay. You're in charge. Drive safe. I'll get back to work now." Moi. I quickly turned my head and looked out the window. This was way too much. I never expected my cold, distant boss to sound like that in private. Then he cleared his throat after hanging up. Just like that, he was back to normal, calm, collected. The investor has already reviewed our proposal, he said. He's quite satisfied, but there are some details that need to be adjusted. I've marked them. Edit it later. Yes, Mr. Brooks, I replied. I was about to leave, but then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it, the mug. Placed on the corner of his desk, titanium. Clean. Exactly the same one I had picked. I froze on the spot. Seeing that I wasn't leaving, Daniel looked up. What is it? I forced myself to stay calm and pointed at the mug. That's a pretty unique mug. Where did you get it? He casually mentioned the same mall. Then he smiled slightly. What, you want one too? I couldn't say anything for a second. Then I quickly shook my head. No, nothing. Just asking. As soon as I finished speaking, I practically rushed out of his office, because one thought kept repeating in my head. Could it be that Daniel was my online boyfriend, but if I was his baby, then who was he calling just now? Was he talking to another woman? Was he seeing two people at once? My chest felt tight. My thoughts were a mess. I wandered back to my desk like I had lost my mind. Naturally, I didn't reply to any of my boyfriend's messages after that. I forced myself to focus and fix the proposal, but by the time I got home, I was completely drained. My phone screen kept lighting up, again and again, all from him. Are you busy, baby? Where are you? Why are you ignoring me? You're acting strange today. Did I do something wrong? Just tell me. I'll fix it. Say something, or you're scaring me. My fingers trembled as I typed a reply. Is there something you've been hiding from me? His response came instantly. No way. I've always been serious and honest with you. Is there some kind of misunderstanding? No. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. At this point, I was almost certain that Daniel was my online boyfriend, so the most important thing now was to find out if he was cheating, and who that baby was, because what if I was just overthinking everything? A moment later, another message came in. By the way, your favorite brand just released a new line. Which one do you like? I'll wear it. He sent several pictures. I stared at them, then picked one. A black knit sweater, simple, but noticeable. The kind of thing you could recognize immediately in public. A part of me still hoped that I was wrong, that Daniel wouldn't show up wearing it. Because if he did, then I'd have to accept the truth. The next morning, I brought the revised proposal to Daniel's office. He was sitting calmly on the sofa, drinking tea, and there it was. The black sweater, the exact one I had chosen. My heart sank instantly. He really was my good boy. The proposal is ready, Mr. Brooks, I said. He looked up and gave a small smile. Thank you, Claire. Get ready. The investors are coming this afternoon. Okay, I replied. But my eyes kept drifting back to the sweater. I tried to sound casual. I don't think I've seen you wear that before. It looks good on you. He smiled. I just bought it yesterday. That was it. My chest tightened. It was really him. I couldn't focus on work at all after that. I kept glancing toward his office. He said he was meeting his baby today, and I wanted to see her. If everything was exactly how I imagined, then this relationship was over. About an hour later, a beautiful woman walked into his office. Elegant, confident, perfectly dressed. I slowly walked closer, pretending to get something from the pantry. The door was slightly open. I could hear laughter inside. I missed you so much, she said softly. You look so good in that sweater. Black really suits you. Daniel's voice was gentle. As long as you like it, that's enough. I even picked it just for you. So, are we meeting your parents tonight? I'm a little worried they won't like me. She laughed lightly. They will. My parents trust my judgment. Those words hit me hard. So, I was just helping him choose what to wear while he went to meet another woman's parents? Then what was I? Just something to pass the time? My hands trembled as I took out my phone. Fighting back the tight feeling in my chest, I typed, "This is disgusting. I'm breaking up with you." I sent it, then blocked him immediately. A moment later, Daniel walked out, holding the woman's hand as he led her away, like nothing had happened. I stood there, forcing a small, bitter smile, feeling completely stupid. Thinking about everything from the past year, all those sweet messages. My eyes started to burn. But at least, I had only used my backup number to talk to him. Otherwise, I couldn't even imagine how awkward this would be. So I told myself, forget it. If I failed in love, I'd just focus on my career. As a grown woman, I couldn't ruin my job over something like this. That afternoon, Daniel messaged me. Claire, come in and walk the investor through the details. I took a deep breath and stood up. No matter what had just happened, I still had a job to do. I fixed my expression and walked into his office like nothing was wrong. Claire, this is Ethan Carter, our investor's representative, Daniel said. He's also a childhood friend of mine. Don't be nervous. Just explain everything clearly. I nodded and stepped forward, but the moment I looked at the man sitting on the sofa, I froze. Our eyes met, and something about him immediately felt different. Daniel was warm, easygoing, but Ethan felt distant, calm in a way that made people keep their space without knowing why. He was wearing a dark suit with a black turtleneck underneath. It fit him perfectly. You could vaguely see the outline of his build beneath it, controlled. Sharp, effortless. Even the way he lifted his cup and took a sip of tea felt deliberate. For a second, I forgot what I was supposed to say. Then Daniel cleared his throat slightly. I snapped back to reality and started presenting. At first, my voice felt tight. But once I got into it, I found my rhythm again. Numbers, strategy, projections, this was my space. I spoke clearly, confidently. When I finished, Daniel clapped first. Very nice, Claire, he said. What do you think, Ethan? We both turned toward him, but Ethan wasn't looking at Daniel. He was looking at me. More specifically, at my neck. Then, out of nowhere, he spoke. That's a very distinctive necklace, Miss Reed. My heart dropped instantly. I looked down. The crystal pendant was visible today because of the neckline of my dress, and suddenly, a memory hit me. I had sent him a picture of it once. Just once. Look, puppy, I had written. Isn't my necklace pretty? And he replied, anything you wear is the prettiest. My pulse spiked. That was the only time I ever showed it. I quickly covered the pendant with my hand, pretending it was nothing. Thank you, I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. I just liked it, so I bought it. Ethan nodded once, but his eyes didn't leave me right away. Daniel, completely unaware, stood up. Well then, he said, clapping his hands lightly. If there are no more questions, Claire can prepare the summary for this week. Ethan, want to grab lunch? I booked our usual place. Sure, Ethan replied calmly. He stood up, picked up his coat, but just before turning away, his eyes met mine again. Just for a second. Short. Subtle. But enough. There was something in that look. Something that felt like a question, or worse, recognition. I left the office quickly, my hands tightening around the documents I was holding. I walked straight to the farthest restroom on the floor, the one nobody liked using. The one near the maintenance room that always smelled faintly burnt. I locked myself in a stall and sat down, pressing my hands against my temples. Think, I whispered to myself. Just think. Fact number 1. I had only sent that necklace picture once, only to him. No one else. Not friends, not family, just him. Fact number 2. Ethan recognized it immediately. Not as nice, not as pretty, but as distinctive. Like he knew it, like he remembered it. Fact number 3. I had blocked my online boyfriend less than 3 hours ago, thinking he was Daniel. I closed my eyes tightly. What if I was wrong? What if everything was wrong? I pulled out my backup phone, the one I used to talk to him. I opened the chat, scrolled up, found the picture. There it was, the same necklace, the same angle, the same caption. My chest tightened. There was no way this was a coincidence. No way. I unlocked his number. My fingers felt stiff. The messages flooded back. My last one. This is disgusting. I'm breaking up with you. After that, 2 missed calls, and then nothing. No begging, no explanations, just silence. My heart sank a little. Was that what an innocent person would do? Or someone who knew exactly what was happening? I stood up slowly and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked shaken. There was a faint smudge under my eye. I wiped it away quickly. Stop guessing, I whispered. You need facts. I walked back to my desk, but pretending to be normal was almost impossible. At 2:30, Daniel and Ethan came back from lunch. Ethan paused near the entrance of the open office. His eyes moved slowly across the desks, like he was looking for something, or someone. When his gaze reached my cubicle, it didn't move right away. I kept my eyes on my screen, pretending to work. He didn't say anything. Then he followed Daniel into the meeting room, but I felt it. He had noticed me. The next 2 hours felt endless. Every sound made me tense. Every step made my shoulders tighten. I checked the chat over and over. Didn't send anything. Didn't know what to say. At 5 p.m., people started leaving. I stayed longer than usual, pretending to organize things. At 5:15, Ethan walked out with his briefcase. He passed by my desk, then stopped. "Good presentation today, Miss Reed," he said. "Thank you," I replied, not looking up. There was a short pause. Then he added, "That necklace suits you very well." This time I looked up, but he was already walking away. The elevator doors opened. He stepped in, gone. I sat there, staring at the empty space he left behind, then slowly looked at my phone, then at the small mirror in my drawer. I took it out and looked at the necklace again, like it might tell me something. There was only one way to find out the truth. I had to talk to him. Not through messages, not guessing, directly, because if I was wrong, I needed to fix it. And if I was right, then everything I thought I knew would have to change. I packed my things slowly, put on my coat, turned off my monitor, and walked toward the elevator, standing in the exact same spot where he had been minutes ago. The doors opened. I stepped inside. They closed. And right then, my backup phone vibrated. One message, from an unknown number. I opened it. "Are you going to keep pretending you don't know me, baby?" My heart stopped. I didn't even remember walking out of the building. 1 second I was in the elevator. The next, I was outside, the cold air hitting my face hard enough to snap me back to reality. My phone was still in my hand. That message still on the screen. "Are you going to keep pretending you don't know me, baby?" I read it again. And again. No name, no profile picture. A completely new number. But that word? Baby. Written exactly the same way. No capital letter, no extra punctuation, just like always. My fingers trembled slightly as I typed. "Who is this?" The reply came almost instantly. "Someone who almost walked over to your desk this afternoon, but you looked very focused on your screen." My throat tightened. He had been watching me. He knew where I sat, which meant it wasn't Daniel. Daniel had been in meetings most of the afternoon, which left only one possibility. I stared at the screen for a second, then typed one word, "Ethan." It wasn't a question. He understood. "You took longer than I expected," he replied. Then, after a short pause, "Although I have to admit, the black sweater was a nice touch." My back pressed against the cold wall behind me. He knew. He had known. Since when? Since this morning? Or earlier? My mind started racing. "The mug," I whispered to myself. It wasn't Daniel's. It had never been Daniel's. Ethan must have been there earlier. Daniel probably just let him use it. Everything I thought I knew was wrong. I typed quickly, "Since when did you know it was me?" This time the reply took a few seconds. "Since the necklace," he wrote. "I suspected it before that." I felt something strange in my chest. Not relief, not exactly. More like everything shifting into place too fast. Then the meeting. I started typing, deleted, typed again. Was that intentional? The comment about the necklace? Yes. "I wanted to see your reaction, and?" There was a short pause. "You're very good at pretending, Claire. But not perfect." My name. Just like that. Not Miss Reed, not formal, just Claire. The same way he would say it in messages. Soft, familiar, like he'd been holding it back. I took a slow breath. I needed to think. I was talking to Ethan Carter, investor representative, my boss's childhood friend. The same man who sat across from me earlier like a complete stranger. And also, the man who had been texting me every night for over a year, sending me food pictures, complaining about being busy, asking if I had eaten. It was too much to process at once. "I need time to think," I typed. "I know," he replied. Then another message came. "But before you do, there's something you should know." My fingers hovered over the screen. "The message you sent earlier," he continued, "the one where you said you were breaking up with me. I understand why you sent it." My chest tightened. "But you were looking at the wrong person." I closed my eyes for a second. The embarrassment hit hard, fast, heavy. I had spent the entire day convinced that Daniel was my boyfriend, convinced he was cheating on me, while the real person was sitting right there, watching everything. I was wrong, I typed. It was the only thing I could say. Yes, he replied. Then, after a short pause, but so was I. I frowned slightly. What do you mean? I've known you work here for weeks, he said. I just didn't say anything. I stared at the message. He knew? For weeks? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? There was a pause, longer this time. Because I didn't know how to start that conversation. I didn't reply right away. We had both been hiding, both pretending, talking every day, while walking past each other in the same building. It felt unreal. And now? I typed. The reply took a little longer. I'm at the cafe on the south corner of the building, the one with the blue chairs. I knew exactly which one he meant. If you want to keep pretending we don't know each other, I'll understand. There was a pause. Then the last message came. But if you don't, I stared at the screen, at those unfinished words. Then I locked my phone, took a deep breath, and started walking toward the cafe. My heart was beating so fast it felt unreal, because now there was no more guessing, no more messages, no more distance. I was about to meet him, for real. And I didn't know if he would feel like a stranger, or exactly like the person I had already fallen for. The cafe had blue chairs, and he was already there, sitting near the window, both hands wrapped around a cup of tea, looking at the door, waiting. The moment I stepped inside, his eyes found me. He didn't smile. He didn't wave, but I saw it. His shoulders dropped slightly, like he had been holding something in, and finally let it go. I walked over slowly and sat down across from him. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The silence stretched, but it didn't feel empty. It felt full, like everything we hadn't said yet was already there between us. Then he spoke, quietly. Hi, baby. My heart jumped. All the tension, all the confusion from the entire day, it hit me at once. And before I could stop myself, I replied, Hi, puppy. The words slipped out naturally, too naturally, exactly the way I always said them. For a second, he blinked. Then something changed in his expression, subtle. A small shift at the corner of his mouth, not quite a smile, but close. I thought you'd take longer, he said. So did I. A server came over. I ordered tea without really thinking, just to have something to do with my hands. Ethan waited until the server left. Then he looked at me again. This time, he didn't look away. Being looked at like that, from this close, was different. Through a screen, you build an image of someone slowly, from words, from timing, from how they respond. But there are always gaps. Ethan didn't have gaps. He was real, completely real, and at the same time, strangely familiar. When exactly did you figure it out? I asked. The necklace, he said. 3 weeks ago. My eyes widened. 3 weeks? He nodded slightly. I arrived early for a meeting. You were presenting in the next room. The door was open, and you didn't say anything? No, no hesitation, no excuse, just the answer. Why? He slowly turned his cup between his fingers, because I didn't know if I wanted to know for sure. I frowned. What does that mean? It means we've been talking for over a year, he said calmly. And we both kept certain boundaries. He looked at me directly. You never gave me your name. I never gave you mine. He paused. That doesn't happen by accident. I didn't interrupt. It happens because both people decide that there's something worth protecting. Another pause. I didn't want to break that without knowing if you were ready. I stayed quiet for a moment. It made sense, more than I expected. It was strange, because the way he spoke now, calm, direct, was very different from the playful way he texted me, and yet, it was still him, the same person. Just complete. Yesterday, I said slowly, when I sent that message. The one saying I was disgusted. I read it, he said. I thought you were Daniel. I know. I blinked. How do you know? Because I've known Daniel since we were kids, he replied, and I know exactly what kind of person he is. He leaned back slightly. When I saw your message, it took me less than a minute to figure out what you saw and how you misunderstood it. I looked down at my cup. The woman today, he added, is his fiancée. Her name is Laura. They've been together for 4 years. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course, everything I thought was wrong. The mug, I said quietly. He frowned slightly. What about it? Daniel had the same one. The titanium mug. Ethan nodded. I lent it to him last week. His broke. A short pause. Bad timing. Bad timing. That was one way to put it. A year of conversations. A rare necklace. A borrowed mug. And I had built an entire wrong story in my head in less than a day. I wrapped my hands around my cup. I need to ask you something. Go ahead. Why me? I asked. Out of all this time, why did you keep talking to me? He didn't answer immediately. He looked out the window for a second, then back at me. Because you're honest, he said, not in an obvious way. He leaned slightly forward, in the way you pause before answering, in the way you admit when you don't know something, in the fact that you never tried to impress me. He held my gaze. There aren't many people like that. I didn't know what to say. That kind of answer, it wasn't easy to respond to. I have a question too, he added. Okay, this morning, he said, when you saw Daniel wearing the sweater you picked, he paused. What did you feel? The question was direct. Too direct to avoid. I felt used, I said quietly, like I was just something to pass time. And now, I looked down at my tea. Now I know I was wrong. I hesitated, but the feeling hasn't caught up yet. He nodded once. No interruption, no correction, just understanding. We both finished our tea slowly. Outside, it had gotten darker without me noticing. The cafe lights made everything feel warmer than it actually was. So, I said, the same question again. What happens now? This time, he didn't leave it unfinished. That depends on you, he said. I already know what I want. He looked at me steadily. I've known for 3 weeks. My heart tightened slightly. And you? He asked. Do you want to know me like this? In person. With a name, a face, and everything that comes with it? I thought about the past year, the late-night messages, the way he reminded me to eat, the way he noticed things, the way he stayed. Then I thought about tomorrow, seeing him in the office, walking past him, working with him. It wouldn't be simple, not at all. But still, I looked at him. Yes, I said. He didn't react immediately. He just looked at me for a second, then nodded once. Okay, that was it. Just, okay, but somehow, it felt like enough. We left the cafe around 7. The street was full of people heading home, moving past us like nothing had changed. But for me, everything had. Ethan walked beside me, hands in his coat pockets. I kept my bag close to my chest, like I needed something to hold on to. For the first few steps, neither of us spoke. Then he said casually, There's a follow-up meeting with Daniel tomorrow at 10. I know, I replied. I got the invite. A short pause. Will it be awkward? He asked. I thought about it honestly. A little, I admitted. I can talk to Daniel, he said. Not about us. Just rearrange things so we don't have to work directly together. I glanced at him. And if I don't want that, he looked back at me. Then we don't change anything. Simple. No pressure, no assumptions, just my choice. We kept walking. When we reached the subway entrance, we stopped. This was my stop. He lived in the opposite direction. I knew that from a random conversation we once had about traffic. I hadn't even realized I remembered it until now. I need to ask you something else, I said. Okay. When did you realize you actually cared? I looked at him. Not just that we got along, not just that the conversations were easy. I paused. When did it become real? He didn't answer right away. He turned slightly toward me. When you blocked me today, he said. I blinked. That was when it became clear. He held my gaze. The idea of not talking to you anymore, he paused briefly. That was enough. I didn't speak for a moment. The night air felt colder now. I knew earlier, I admitted. When? When I picked the black sweater. He raised an eyebrow slightly. I didn't pick it to test you, I said. I picked it because I thought it would look good on you. I looked away for a second. And that annoyed me, because at the time, I thought you were Daniel. Something almost like amusement crossed his face. You chose well, even when you thought I was cheating on you, apparently. That sounds like you. The way he said it, quiet, familiar. exactly like in our messages late at night, like he wasn't trying to sound composed anymore. I looked back at him. "Do you realize how ridiculous this is?" I said. "Completely. More than a year talking every day, and neither of us even shared our names. You said yours first today," he replied calmly. "You knew mine for 3 weeks." Fair point. The subway rumbled faintly below us. Warm air rose from the entrance. A small gust of wind moved my hair across my face. Before I could fix it, he reached out and moved it aside. Just a simple gesture. Natural, quick. And then his hand was back in his pocket like nothing happened. But I noticed it. Of course I noticed it. I took a slow breath. "Tomorrow at 10, I said. 10, he confirmed. "I'm going to act completely professional. So am I. And if you send me a message with a puppy emoji during work," I looked at him. "I'm ignoring you." This time, he smiled, fully, and it caught me off guard. It was the first real smile I had seen from him, and it suited him a little too well. "I'm not making any promises," he said. I shook my head slightly and turned toward the subway. "Good night," I said. "Good night, Claire." I walked down the stairs. The sound of the city faded behind me. On the platform, I finally took out my phone. Not my main one. The other one. The one I used for him. I opened the chat, typed, "I'm at the subway." The reply came before the train even arrived. "Okay, let me know when you get home." I stared at the message for a second, then put my phone away. The train arrived. I got in, sat down, watched the reflection of strangers in the window. Everything felt different. Just this morning, my life had been simple. Work, routine, a distant boss, an online boyfriend with no face, no name. Everything separate, organized, safe. Now, everything had collided, and what was left was messier, more complicated, harder to control, but also more real. 20 minutes later, I stepped out onto my street. Cold air wrapped around me again. I pulled my coat tighter and took out my phone. "I'm home," I typed. His reply came instantly. "Good." Then another message. "Eat something. Be a good girl." I stopped walking, stared at the screen, and for the first time all day, I laughed. A real laugh. Short, light, uncontrolled, right there on the sidewalk. I typed back, "You eat too, puppy." Then locked my phone and kept walking home. But even as I did, my hand moved instinctively to my necklace, covering it lightly, as if I could still hide it, as if I could undo everything that had happened today. But it was too late. Ethan had already seen it, recognized it, connected everything, and what unsettled me the most wasn't that he noticed it. It was how he said it. So calmly, so precisely. Like he already knew the answer, and was just waiting to see mine. The next morning, I got to the office earlier than usual. I told myself it was to prepare for the meeting, but that wasn't true. I just needed time to calm down, time to act normal, time to pretend nothing had changed, even though everything had. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and tried to focus. Emails, documents, numbers, anything that didn't involve him. My phone stayed silent. No messages, no good morning, no puppy emojis. And somehow, that felt more distracting than if he had texted. At 9:55, I stood up, smoothed my clothes, took a breath, then walked toward the meeting room. When I got there, he was already inside, sitting at the table, calm, composed, like yesterday had never happened, like the cafe didn't exist, like we weren't anything more than strangers. Daniel walked in right after me. "Good, you're both here," he said. "Let's get started." I sat down across from Ethan, not too close. Not too far, just safe distance. I opened my laptop, focused on the screen, didn't look at him, not once. The meeting started. Daniel talked. Ethan listened. I explained the updates. Everything felt normal. Too normal. Like we were all pretending. At some point, Daniel turned to Ethan. "What do you think?" he asked. Ethan responded calmly. "The structure is solid. There are a few areas that could be tightened." His tone was neutral, professional, no trace of anything else. Then, he looked at me, only for a second. "Claire, could you walk me through this section again?" "My name," said naturally, like it meant nothing, like it meant everything. "Of course," I replied. My voice didn't shake. At least I don't think it did. I started explaining again, point by point, focused, clear. But I could feel it, his attention, not just on the work, on me. Every time I paused, every time I shifted slightly, I was aware of it, and somehow that made it harder to breathe. The meeting went on, minutes stretched, everything stayed controlled, until my phone vibrated. Soft, quick, barely noticeable, but I felt it. Of course I did. I froze for half a second, then forced myself to keep talking. Don't look. Not now. Stay focused. But curiosity pulled at me. Slowly, relentlessly. When Daniel started speaking again, I glanced down quickly. A message. From him. Try not to look so nervous. My heart skipped. I locked my phone immediately. Didn't react. Didn't look up. But I knew. He was watching me. The rest of the meeting felt longer than it should have. When it finally ended, Daniel stood up. Good work, he said. Let's move forward with this version. He picked up his things and walked out first, leaving just the two of us. The door closed behind him. Silence. I stayed seated, staring at my laptop, not moving, not breathing properly. Then, I thought you said you were going to ignore me during work. His voice was low. Calm. Too calm. I looked up. He was watching me. Not like before. Not like in the meeting. This was different. More direct. You texted first, I said. That wasn't a puppy emoji. That doesn't make it better. A small pause. Then, that depends, he said. On what? On whether you were actually nervous or just pretending. I closed my laptop slowly. I wasn't nervous, I said. He held my gaze. Then you're a better actor than I thought. I stood up. Or maybe you're just overthinking things. He didn't move. Didn't look away. Maybe, he said, but it didn't sound like he believed that. I picked up my things, walked toward the door, then stopped. My hand on the handle. I didn't turn around, but I spoke anyway. You said you knew what you wanted. A pause. I said yes. Another pause. But this... I hesitated. This is going to be complicated. Behind me, I heard him stand up. Slow, measured. I know, he said. I finally turned. He was closer now, not too close, but closer than before. I'm not expecting it to be easy, he continued. Then what are you expecting? He looked at me, steady, certain, that you won't run away. My chest tightened slightly. I didn't answer, because I didn't know if I could promise that. So instead, I opened the door and walked out, back into the office, back into normal life, except nothing felt normal anymore. I tried to go back to normal. I really did. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and forced myself to focus. Emails, reports, anything that didn't involve him. But it didn't work, because now I was aware of him, not just as someone in the building, but as him. Every sound from the hallway made me look up. Every time someone walked past my cubicle, my body reacted before my mind could stop it. It was exhausting. Around 11:30, my coworker Megan leaned over the divider. You okay? She asked. I blinked. Yeah, why? You look distracted, she said, like you didn't sleep. I'm fine, I replied quickly. Too quickly. She narrowed her eyes slightly. Did something happen? No. A pause. Then she smiled. Okay, if you say so. She went back to her desk, but I could feel it. I wasn't as normal as I thought I was. I tried to focus again. Didn't work. At 12:15, I stood up. I need coffee, I muttered to myself. That felt safe. Neutral. Just coffee. I walked to the break area, hoping it would help me reset. It didn't. Because the moment I stepped inside, he was already there, standing by the counter, pouring coffee. Like this was completely normal. Like this wasn't the first time we were alone at work after everything. I stopped, just for a second, then forced myself to keep walking. Act normal. Just act normal. I grabbed a cup, turned on the machine, didn't look at him. Not directly, but I could feel it, his presence. Closer than before. Busy morning? His voice was calm, like always. Something like that, I replied. Still not looking at him. A short pause. Then, you didn't text this morning. I froze slightly. That was not a work conversation. I lowered my voice. We're at work. So? I turned my head just enough to look at him. People can hear you. They can't hear this. He wasn't wrong. Still, that's not the point, I said. Then what is the point? I didn't answer immediately, because I didn't have a simple answer. The coffee machine beeped. I picked up my cup, turned toward the exit, but he spoke again. "You're avoiding me." I stopped. Just for a second, then turned back. "I'm being careful." "With me?" "With everything." He studied my face for a moment, like he was trying to read something I wasn't saying. "You weren't careful last night," he said. My chest tightened slightly. "That was different." "How?" I hesitated, then said it anyway. There weren't consequences. A pause. Then he stepped a little closer, not enough to draw attention, but enough that I noticed. "There are always consequences," he said quietly. That made me look at him. Really look at him. "And you're okay with that?" I asked. "With people noticing? With things getting complicated?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes." My grip tightened slightly around the cup. "I'm not," I said. He didn't argue, didn't push, just nodded once. "Then we go at your pace." That caught me off guard. I expected resistance. Not that. "You're okay with that?" I asked. "I already waited a year," he said. "I can wait a little longer." I didn't have a response for that, so I turned and walked out. Back to my desk, but my heart wasn't steady anymore, not even close. The rest of the afternoon felt different, more tense, more aware. At one point, Daniel walked by my desk. "Claire," he said, stopping briefly, "Ethan will be here for a few more days." My stomach tightened. "I'll need you to coordinate with him on the revisions, of course." "Understood," I replied. He nodded and walked away. I stared at my screen. So much for keeping distance. A few minutes later, a message popped up on my work system, from Ethan. "Let's review section 3 together." I stared at it, then replied, "Okay." A second later, another message. This time, try not to look nervous. I pressed my lips together, then typed, "I told you, I'm not nervous." His reply came instantly. "Then prove it." I stood up, took a breath, and walked toward the meeting room. When I stepped inside, he was already there, waiting. Like he knew I wouldn't take long. I closed the door behind me, and suddenly, it felt just like the cafe again. Except this time, we weren't outside the world. We were right in the middle of it. I closed the door behind me. The sound felt louder than it should have. For a second, neither of us moved. Then I walked toward the table and placed my laptop down. "Section 3, I said, keeping my voice neutral. "Right," he replied. But he didn't sit, and that alone made it harder to stay calm. I opened the file, scrolled, pointed at the screen. "These are the updated projections," I said. "We adjusted the timeline based on—" "You're still doing it." I stopped. "What?" He stepped closer. "Pretending this is just work." My chest tightened. "This is work." "A part of it," he said. "Not all of it." I looked up at him. "You said we'd keep this professional." "I said we'd go at your pace," he corrected calmly. "That doesn't mean I ignore what's obvious." I held his gaze for a second, then looked back at my screen. "What's obvious?" I asked. A pause, then, "That you keep looking at me like you're trying not to." My fingers tightened slightly on the edge of the laptop. "I'm not—" "You are." I exhaled quietly. This was exactly what I was trying to avoid. "Can we just focus?" I said. "We are." "No," I replied, finally looking at him again. "You're not." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air felt heavier than it should have. Then, a sound outside the door. Footsteps. Voices. Both of us froze, instinctively. The handle moved slightly. I felt my heartbeat spike, but the door didn't open. The voices passed. The footsteps faded. Silence again. I let out a slow breath. "That's what I mean," I said quietly. "This is exactly the problem." He didn't respond immediately. Then, "You think I don't understand that?" I hesitated. "I think you don't take it seriously enough." His expression didn't change much, but something in his eyes did. "I do," he said. "Then act like it." A pause. Then he stepped back, just a little, creating space. "Okay," he said, just like that. No argument, no resistance, and somehow, that made it harder. I swallowed and turned back to my laptop. "Section 3, I repeated. This time he sat down, and we actually went through the work. Line by line, point by point. Professional, controlled, like nothing else existed. But it wasn't real, not completely. Because every time our hands got too close on the table, I noticed. Every time he leaned slightly forward, I noticed. Every time there was a pause, too long to be normal, I felt it. After about 20 minutes, I closed my laptop. That should be enough for now, I said. He nodded, but didn't move right away. Neither did I. The silence returned, different this time. Less tense, but heavier. Claire, he said. My name again. Not Miss Reed. Not formal. Just Claire. I looked at him. Yes? You said earlier that this is complicated. It is. Then let me ask you something. I waited. If this wasn't work, he said, would it still be complicated? That question hit harder than I expected, because I already knew the answer. I just didn't want to say it. No, I admitted quietly. He held my gaze. Then the problem isn't us. It is, I said. How? Because this is real life, I replied, and real life doesn't ignore consequences. A pause. Then, and what do you want? He asked. I didn't answer right away. Because that was the question. The real one. What did I want? I looked at him, at the same person I had spent over a year talking to, laughing with, trusting, without ever seeing his face. And now, he was right here, real, close, complicated. I don't know yet, I said. That was the truth. He nodded. That's fine. Another pause. Then he stood up, walked toward the door. But before opening it, he stopped and looked back at me. You're not as careful as you think, he said. My heart skipped. What does that mean? You still said puppy yesterday. My face instantly felt hot. That was not very professional. I didn't have a response, because he wasn't wrong, at all. He opened the door, then paused again. And for the record, I looked at him. That's still my favorite one. And then he left, leaving me alone in the room, standing there, trying to steady my breathing. Because no matter how hard I tried to keep things controlled, they were already slipping. And I wasn't sure I wanted to stop it anymore. When I walked back to my desk, I knew something had changed, not just inside me, around me. Megan looked up almost immediately. Wow, she said. That took longer than I expected. I sat down, trying to sound normal. We had a lot to go over. She didn't look convinced. With Ethan? I froze for half a second, then nodded. Yeah. She leaned back slightly in her chair, studying me. That, felt dangerous. What? I asked. Nothing, she said, smiling a little too casually. You just seem different. I'm not. Okay, she replied, but you've gone to that meeting room twice today. I blinked. I'm working, with the same person. That's literally my job. She raised her hand slightly. Relax. I didn't say anything, but her expression said enough. She noticed, maybe not everything, but enough. I turned back to my screen, tried to focus, failed, because now, it wasn't just me thinking about him. Someone else was starting to notice too, and that made everything feel more real, more risky. Around 3 p.m., another message popped up on my work system. From him. Are you free? I stared at it, then typed, for work? A few seconds later, that depends on your answer. I pressed my lips together, then replied, yes, for work. A pause. Then, come to meeting room B. I hesitated, just for a second, then stood up, again. This was getting dangerous. I could feel it, but I still walked there. When I stepped inside, he was leaning against the table, waiting, like before. I closed the door, this time more carefully. People are starting to notice, I said immediately. He didn't seem surprised. Your coworker? Megan. He nodded slightly. She was watching earlier. Of course he noticed that too. See? I said. This is what I'm talking about. And what exactly are you suggesting? He asked. That we need boundaries. We already have them. Not enough. A pause. Then he straightened slightly. Okay, he said. Set them. I wasn't expecting that. You're serious? Yes. I took a breath. Work stays work, I said. No personal conversations here. All right. No messages during meetings. Fine. No, comments like earlier. He tilted his head slightly. About the necklace? Yes. A small pause. Then, that one might be difficult. I stared at him. Ethan. Okay, he said calmly. I'll try. I exhaled slowly. And outside work? He asked. That's different. How? I hesitated, then said it anyway. Outside? We can figure it out. He watched me carefully, like he was measuring every word. Figure it out, he repeated. Yes, a quiet moment passed between us. Then, Claire. My name again. Softer this time. I looked at him. What? You're already treating this like it matters. My chest tightened slightly. It does matter. Exactly. I didn't respond, because that was the problem. It mattered more than I expected, more than I wanted. A sudden knock on the door. Both of us froze. Again. Claire? A voice called from outside. Megan. My stomach dropped. Yes? I answered. Are you in there? I looked at Ethan. He didn't move, didn't speak, just waited. I'm reviewing something, I said. With who? She asked. Silence. Too long. I had to answer. With Ethan, I said. A pause. Then, oh, okay. Her footsteps faded. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. That was close, I muttered. She didn't sound convinced, he said. She's not. A pause. Then I looked at him. This is exactly what I mean. And yet, he replied calmly, you're still here. I didn't answer that, because he was right. I could have left. I should have left. But I didn't, and we both knew why. I grabbed my laptop. We're done for now, I said. He nodded. No argument. No stopping me. I walked to the door, opened it, checked the hallway, clear, then stepped out. Back to my desk. Megan looked up immediately. So? She asked. So what? What were you doing? Working. She gave me a look. A lot of working today. I forced a small smile. Deadlines. She leaned back again. Right, but she didn't push further. Not yet. I sat down, opened my laptop, tried to act normal again, but now there was a new problem. It wasn't just about being careful. It wasn't just about hiding it. It was about the fact that I didn't actually want to stop, and that scared me more than anything else. I told myself I just needed to get through the day, just a few more hours, stay focused, stay normal, go home. But the more I tried to ignore everything, the harder it got. Because now, it wasn't just tension, it was awareness. Every time my screen lit up, I checked it, even when I knew it wasn't him. Even when I told myself not to. At some point, I opened our chat again, scrolled, read old messages, the stupid ones, the soft ones, the ones where nothing felt complicated, back when he was just a voice on a screen, not someone sitting a few steps away from me, not someone who could walk into the same room at any moment. Claire? I flinched slightly. Megan was standing next to my desk. How many times do I have to call you? She said. Sorry, I replied quickly. Just thinking. Yeah, I noticed. She leaned against the divider. You've been off all day. I'm fine. You're not. I didn't answer, because arguing would make it worse. She watched me for a second, then lowered her voice. Is this about Ethan? My heart skipped. No, I said immediately. Too fast. Again. She raised an eyebrow. Really? Yes. She didn't look convinced. At all. I'm just saying, she continued. You've been in meetings with him all day, and now you're acting like this. It's work. Okay, she said slowly. But she didn't move, didn't drop it. You know, she added casually, people are starting to notice. That made my stomach tighten. What do you mean? Nothing serious, she said. Just you going back and forth between meeting rooms. I forced a small laugh. That's normal. Maybe, she replied. But not like this. I didn't respond, because I didn't know how. She studied my face for a moment longer, then sighed. Just be careful, okay? That word again. Careful. I nodded. I will. She finally walked away. But her words stayed. People are starting to notice. I stared at my screen, not seeing anything. Just thinking. Maybe she was right. Maybe I needed to pull back, create distance, reset everything, before it turned into something I couldn't control. I picked up my phone, opened our chat, typed, "We should slow down." I stared at the message, read it twice, then hit send. The reply came faster than I expected. How much? I swallowed. Less talking during the day. A pause. Then, only during the day? My fingers hovered. Yes. Another pause. Then, okay, that was it. No argument. No pushback. Just, okay. And somehow, that didn't feel better. It felt worse, like something had just shifted again. I locked my phone and put it down. Tried to focus. Didn't work, because now I was thinking about the opposite. About the silence. About not hearing from him. About pretending nothing was there when it clearly was. Around 5 p.m., people started packing up. The office slowly emptied. Megan waved on her way out. "Don't stay too late," she said. "I won't," but I didn't leave. Not yet. I stayed at my desk, staring at nothing, waiting, without admitting I was waiting, for something, for him. And then, footsteps, familiar, measured. I didn't look up right away, but I knew. Of course I knew. He stopped near my desk. "Still working?" I finally looked up. Something like that, a pause. The office around us was quieter now, almost empty. "Everyone's gone," he said. I noticed. Another pause. Different from the others. Less tense. More open. "You said we should slow down," he continued. I did. "And this is you doing that?" I hesitated. Then, "No. Honest. Too honest." Something shifted in his expression. Not surprise, more like confirmation. He stepped a little closer. Not too much. Just enough. "So what is this?" he asked. I looked at him. At the same person I'd been talking to for over a year. At the person who now felt both familiar and completely new. "This is me trying to figure out what I want," I said. And failing." A small pause. Then, "That makes two of us." That caught me off guard. "You don't know either?" "I know what I want," he said. "I just don't know how far you're willing to go." My chest tightened. "That's not fair." "Why not?" "Because you're making it sound simple." "It is simple," he replied. "Then explain it." A pause. Then, "I want to keep this," he said, "with you." In real life, his voice didn't change. Still calm, still steady. But the words, they landed differently. "And the complications?" I asked. "We deal with them." "Just like that?" "Yes." I shook my head slightly. "That's not how it works." "Then how does it work?" I didn't answer, because I didn't have a better answer, and that was the problem. We stood there in silence, the office almost empty, the lights too bright, everything too clear. "This is exactly why I said we should slow down," I said finally. "And this is exactly why slowing down won't change anything," he replied. I exhaled slowly. He wasn't wrong, and that made it harder. "Claire," my name again. Softer this time. I looked at him. "What?" "You're not as in control as you think." That hit deeper than I expected. Because it was true. I wasn't. Not anymore. Not with him standing this close. Not with everything that had happened. I looked away. Just for a second. Then back at him. "I know." That was the first time I admitted it out loud. And once I did, there was no taking it back. Neither of us moved. The office was almost empty now. The noise from earlier was gone. No voices, no footsteps. Just silence, and him. Standing right in front of me. Close enough that I couldn't ignore it anymore. Close enough that pretending didn't make sense. "You said you're not in control," he said quietly. "I'm not." "Then stop acting like you are." I let out a small breath. "That's easy for you to say." "Is it?" I looked at him. "Yes. Why?" "Because you're not the one who has to deal with people watching," I said. "You're not the one whose coworkers are starting to notice." He didn't interrupt. Didn't argue. Just listened. "And you're not the one who has to sit there," I continued, "pretending nothing is happening when everything is happening." A pause. Then, "You think I don't feel that?" That made me stop. Really stop. "What?" His voice didn't change. Still calm. But there was something under it now. Something quieter. "I was sitting across from you this morning," he said, "listening to you talk like nothing had changed." He held my gaze. While knowing exactly what changed, my chest tightened. "I had to sit there and act like I didn't know you," he continued. "Like you weren't the same person I've been talking to every day for a year." He took a small step closer. "And you think that's easy?" I didn't answer. Because I hadn't thought about it like that. Not fully. "I'm not trying to make this harder for you," he said. "Then what are you doing?" A pause. Then, "I'm trying to make this real." That word again. Real. Everything about this felt too real already. "That's exactly the problem," I said quietly. "Why?" "Because once it's real," I hesitated. "There's no going back." Silence. Then, "Do you want to go back?" The question hit instantly. No time to prepare, no time to avoid. I opened my mouth and stopped because the answer was already there. Clear, simple. No. His eyes didn't leave mine. Then stop treating this like something temporary. I swallowed. This isn't temporary. Then what is it? I hesitated again, not because I didn't know, but because saying it would change things, make it official, real in a different way. I don't know yet, I said. Honest. Still honest. That hadn't changed. He nodded slowly, like he expected that. Then I'll wait, he said. That word again. Wait. You keep saying that, I replied, because I mean it. A pause. Then, but I'm not going to pretend I don't want more. My heart skipped. You don't have to say it yet, he added, but don't act like it's not there. The room felt smaller. Or maybe it was just him being closer. I wasn't even sure when that happened. I looked at him. Really looked. At the person I had trusted without seeing. At the person who somehow felt even more familiar now. I'm trying, I said quietly. I know. Another pause. Then, I'm just not good at this part. What part? This, I said, gesturing slightly between us, when it stops being just words. He watched me for a second, then said, You're doing fine. I almost laughed. I don't feel like I am. That's because you're thinking too much. Someone has to. I am. I frowned slightly. That's not reassuring. It should be. Why? Because I don't overthink things, he said. That's exactly the problem. A small pause. Then, it's not a problem if I'm right. I held his gaze. And you think you are? Yes. No hesitation. None. That confidence, it made something in my chest tighten again. About what? I asked. He didn't answer immediately, just looked at me. Then, this. The way he said it, simple, direct. Like there was no doubt. I didn't look away, didn't step back, didn't stop him when he moved just slightly closer again. Not enough to cross a line, but enough that I felt it. The space between us shrinking, and for the first time, I didn't try to fix it, didn't try to create distance, didn't try to pretend. My heart was beating too fast. But I stayed, right there, with him. And that was the moment everything shifted. Not because something dramatic happened, not because anything big changed, but because I stopped pulling away. And he noticed. Of course he noticed. You didn't step back, he said quietly. I swallowed. No. A pause. Why? I hesitated, just for a second, then told the truth. Because I didn't want to. Silence, heavy, different, and then, for the first time since all of this started, I felt it clearly. Not confusion, not fear, not hesitation. Something else. Something simple, something undeniable. I wanted this, and now, I couldn't pretend I didn't. We stayed like that for a few seconds. Too close, too aware, too real. Neither of us moved. But something had already changed. You said you didn't want to step back, he said quietly. I didn't. Then don't. Simple. Like everything he said, I let out a slow breath. This isn't just about what I want, I replied. It is. No, it's not, I said. There's work, there's people, there's consequences, and there's you, he said. That stopped me, because again, he made it sound simple. Too simple. You keep doing that, I said. Doing what? Reducing everything to one answer, and you keep making it more complicated than it is. A pause. Then, maybe I have to, I said quietly. Why? Because if I don't, I hesitated. I might make a decision I can't take back. Silence. Then, not everything needs to be taken back. I looked at him. That's easy for you to say. It's not. For the first time, he didn't sound completely certain, and that surprised me. I know what I want, he continued, but that doesn't mean I don't understand what this could cost. That made my chest tighten slightly. You do? Yes. A pause. Then, but I'm still here. That mattered, more than I expected, because he wasn't ignoring the risk. He just wasn't letting it stop him. I don't want to regret this, I said. You will, he replied. I blinked. What? You'll regret something either way, he held my gaze. So the question isn't how to avoid regret. A pause. It's which one you're willing to live with. That hit harder than anything else he had said, because it was true. Painfully true. I looked down for a second, then back at him. And you? I asked. Which one are you choosing? Easy, he said. No hesitation. You. My breath caught. That word again. Simple. Direct. But this time, it felt different. Because now I understood exactly what it meant. The room felt too quiet. Too still. Like everything had narrowed down to just this moment. You're making this very difficult, I said softly. I'm making it honest. I didn't respond. Because I didn't have a way to argue with that. Another step. Closer. Not rushed. Not forced. Just natural. Like it had always been heading there. If you want to stop this, he said quietly, you can. I didn't move. You can walk out right now, he continued, and we'll go back to being just co-workers. A pause. I won't push you. Silence. Heavy. Real. I thought about it. About walking away. About resetting everything. About going back to before. Before the messages. Before the cafe. Before all of this became real. And for a second, I tried to imagine it. Tried to convince myself it was possible, but it wasn't. Because I already knew too much. Felt too much. Claire. My name again. Softer than before. I looked at him. Are you going to walk away? That was it. The moment. The decision. I could feel my heart racing. Feel everything tightening. But this time, I didn't hesitate. No. The word came out steady, clear, certain. Something shifted in his expression. Not surprise. More like relief. Small, controlled. But there, okay, he said quietly. And this time, he didn't stop at just standing closer. He reached for my hand, slowly, like he was giving me time to pull away. I didn't. Our fingers touched, warm, real. And that simple contact felt stronger than anything else that had happened. I didn't pull back, didn't look away, didn't pretend. For the first time, there was no distance left to hide behind, no screen, no messages, no excuses, just him and me, standing there, choosing this, for a moment. Neither of us moved. My hand was still in his. Warm, steady, real, and that alone made everything feel different, not like a decision I was thinking about anymore, but one I had already made. You didn't pull away, he said quietly. I didn't. A pause. And you're not going to? I shook my head slightly. No. That answer felt heavier now, more real than before. Because this time, there was no uncertainty behind it. He tightened his grip just a little. Not enough to trap me, just enough to confirm it. You're sure? He asked. I took a breath, then nodded. Yes. Silence settled between us again, but it wasn't tense anymore. It wasn't uncertain. It felt settled. Like something had finally clicked into place. We should probably leave, I said after a moment. Probably. Neither of us moved right away. Then I slowly pulled my hand back. Not to create distance, just because we had to. We'll figure this out, he said. It wasn't a question. I know, I replied. And this time, I meant it. We walked out of the room separately. Not together, not yet. Back into the office, back into normal. Except, nothing was normal anymore. Megan was still at her desk when I got back. She looked up immediately. There you are, she said. I thought you disappeared. Just finishing something, I replied. With Ethan? She asked. I paused, just for a second. Then, yes. She watched my face carefully, like she was trying to read something. She said again. That same tone, that same look. You know, she added, I've never seen you like this before. Like what? She smiled slightly, like you're trying very hard not to smile. I froze, just for a second, then looked at my screen. I'm not. Okay, she said. But she didn't sound convinced, at all. A few minutes later, she packed her things. Don't stay too late, she said again. I won't, she left. The office grew quiet. I sat there for a while, not working, just thinking about everything that had happened. Yesterday, this would have felt impossible, too complicated, too risky, too much. But now, it didn't feel like that anymore. It felt simple, not easy, but simple. I picked up my phone, opened our chat, typed, still at work? The reply came quickly. For a few more minutes, I hesitated, then typed again, walk out together? A pause, longer this time. Then, are you sure? I looked around. The office was almost empty. No one paying attention. No one watching. For once, it didn't feel like something to hide. Yes. The reply came. Okay. I stood up, grabbed my bag, turned off my screen, and walked toward the exit. He was already there, waiting, like before. But this time, it felt different. No distance, no pretending, just quiet understanding. We walked out together, not touching, not obvious, but not hiding either. The air outside felt cooler than before, clearer, like everything had reset. What now? I asked. He looked at me. Now we stop pretending this isn't real. A small pause. And we deal with everything else after. I nodded slowly. That sounded right. For once. It didn't feel overwhelming. It felt manageable. We walked a little further, then stopped at the corner. Same place as yesterday, but nothing about it felt the same. I'm glad you didn't walk away, he said. Me too. A pause. Then I added, even if this gets complicated, it will, he said. I know. Another pause. Then, but I still chose this. He looked at me for a second, then nodded. Good. That was it. No big speech. No dramatic ending. Just good. And somehow, that felt like enough, because this wasn't the end. Not really. It was just the part where everything stopped being distant, stopped being safe, and finally became real.